My name is Chris McGowan. I serve as the president of the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce, and I am so pleased and so proud to introduce this evening's keynote speaker, Secretary Mike Pompeo. His legacy of leadership is literally second to none in service to our country. As a teenager, going to West Point, the United States Military Academy at West Point, he, as a young Army officer, patrolled the Berlin Wall. After that, went to Harvard Law, served in the private sector, 3 terms in Congress, elected 4 times, served as the director of the CIA, and of course the 70th Secretary of State. We're so pleased and so proud to have him with us. Please give a warm welcome and 15 minutes of your questions to Secretary Mike Pompeo.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be with you. It's great to be in Siouxland. Tonight I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to both meet with, listen to, and then share my take on American greatness, how to make sure that the next 250 years of America create the opportunity and prosperity that gave me all of the opportunities that I've had, and share with them my take as someone who served as a member of Congress from a place not unlike this, from South Central Kansas, not unlike here in Siouxland, where people work hard, take care of their families, and do the right things for themselves, and ask only that the government get out of their way and give them the opportunity to do that. I'll talk a little bit about the legacy that we tried to build, how we tried to make sure that we always put America first, and then I think offer some deep encouragement about the things we can all do to make sure that America remains a nation that is a force for good in the world. And with that, I'm happy to talk about anything. Take questions for a few minutes.
Well,
yes,
with your topic tonight, for those that aren't going to be here, and this will be maybe a little preview of it, but how are we perceived by our allies, do you think in particular? I mean, we kind of know who doesn't perceive us well, but as far as our allies, how are we perceived right now under the current administration?
So I take no joy in saying that over the last now 20 months, America's role in the world has been diminished, that our adversaries fear us less. Think Vladimir Putin's invasion of Europe. Think the fact that the Chinese are now dropping missiles off the coast of Taiwan. Our adversaries fear us less, and our friends trust us less. That's a bad that's a bad place to put the American people. We were always very focused on making sure we were doing the good work that would impact the lives of Americans, even when we were working around the world. And our friends have lost confidence. What they saw happen in Afghanistan now 13 months ago, where we had 13 American soldiers killed, we left Americans behind in a way that we never had before. Our friends and partners on that mission set there took note of it. And those are the kind of things that diminish America's capacity to protect ourselves here at home. And I watch as the administration is negotiating with the Iranians while the Iranians are trying to kill senior former government officials, and while the Iranians are engaged in terror all around the world while they're killing their own. Our friends in the Middle East who joined with us to protect Israel and build out what became the Abraham Accords, they are hedging their bets. These are nations that are now reestablishing their ties to Iran, their diplomatic ties. They're building commercial relationships in ways with an adversary that wants to destroy our nation and Israel. It's what friends do when they don't trust their friends. And I fear that that's the path we're headed on, and I pray that the Biden administration will begin to right that ship and restore the deterrence that we had in place for 4 years.
Sir, as the former CIA director, I'm sure you had lots of opportunity to view highly classified material. So what do you make of former President Trump having those types of documents at his estate?
Well, I don't know what documents he had down there, but it is unequivocally true that no one gets to keep classified documents outside of the appropriate setting for those classified documents to be. I felt the very same way when I served on the Benghazi Committee. When I served on the Benghazi Committee, Hillary Clinton had classified information all over the place. And that was inappropriate. That is dangerous, right? The reason we classify information, look, if we get it wrong and it shouldn't be classified, we should unclassify. But to the extent it is information that needs to be protected, it needs to be protected. And no Secretary of State, no one should have that on their server. But I'll say one last thought on this. When I was working on the Benghazi Committee, it was very clear that there was TS level, very high level secret information on Secretary Clinton's equipment. We didn't ask the Justice Department to raid her home. We worked to secure the information. and then we work to hold accountable those persons that had put the information in place it shouldn't have been. That's the model we should have used. The fact that this Justice Department chose to do something that's never been done in America before, that demonstrates to me that there's something more going on than just the protection of classified information. There were other tools and ways I believe they could have done that wouldn't have undermined America's confidence in its Justice Department and its FBI.
Did you ever hear former President Trump give an oral order to declassify something, whether in this case or any other case?
I just don't talk about private conversations between he and I or things I may have heard. I've spoken to the January 6th committee. If someone else asks me to come testify, happy to do that in an appropriate place.
So what would accountability look like for mishandling documents?
Depends what was there, and depends how they were handled, and it depends how the conversation had been. People can make mistakes, right, about classified information, have it someplace it shouldn't be. That's not good. When I was a young lieutenant, I had a piece of signals equipment in my pocket all the time that was our communication secrets. We secured them. Sometimes you'd mess up and you'd not get it where it should be. So it depends, and so we should make sure we get it right. We all have an obligation to protect information that keeps our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines safe.
Lighthearted, how does it feel to be back, sort of, back home?
Yeah, it's awesome. When I flew in today and looked out at the square miles and the farmland, it makes me feel better. It does, in fact, feel like, it does feel familiar to me. And the people who I've had a chance to meet this afternoon already feel familiar to me, right? They're the kind of folks who just, right, they do the right thing. They go to church, take care of their families, build their community, try to help every place they can. Really decent, good, patriotic people. So yeah, it's lovely to be back in the heartland.
Do you see we're going to have any kind of end game soon to Ukraine? Putin now is trying to do a troop surge. Young people are leaving left, or they're going to Turkey and wherever else they don't need a visa to get into, and he's blustering about nuclear again when there's no one really directly threatening him. How do we get to an end game with Ukraine?
So that question can only be answered through two different views. For Vladimir Putin, there's no endgame other than complete and total control of Ukraine and, frankly, larger parts of Europe as well. He believes in all his heart that Ukraine is part of Greater Russia, and it is a wrong that it is an independent, free, political, sovereign nation. So from Putin's perspective, there's no end. When I hear people talk about, well, let's get an off-ramp, when someone believes in their heart that they have been wronged and they have a historic grievance, Putin's going to stay at this. But from our perspective, you can get to an end. We did. One should never forget this conflict in Europe did not begin in February of this year. Putin invaded Ukraine in 2015 and took 20% of that country under President Obama. Failed American leadership, failure to deter, and put 20% of Ukrainian real estate in the control of the Russians. For 4 years, Vladimir Putin did not take any further real estate in Europe, anywhere. And as soon as we left, within months, he began to plan and plot and build out his forces. By the fall of 2021, had made the decision to invade Europe yet again and take more land. So what does the end look like? The end looks like restoring deterrence. American leadership, putting Europe first, putting Europe in front, making them bear the full load, and getting right the model in Vladimir Putin's head that the cost of his continued atrocities in Ukraine will exceed the benefits. That's straightforward. He has to perceive that. Until he perceives that, he'll stay at this. And we can do it. We know how to do it. We demonstrated for 4 years precisely how to do that. We built our military. We made sure they were focused on the mission, not some woke idea of what should be in the military. We were focused on demonstrating the American power. We built our economy. All of those things are things that Vladimir Putin took note of. We delivered American energy around the world, forcing crude oil prices down. Lower margins for Russia, bad news for Vladimir. These were the things that made Putin not invade Europe. It wasn't random that for 4 years he ceased his attacks on Europe. I'm convinced of that.
What are some of your thoughts on what's going on down at the border, like Mexico and ASL? Things are happening between like people busing people in, I guess, things like that.
4.2 million illegal entries in less than 20 months. Kansas, my home state, 3.2 million people. Think about the math on that for just a second. More people by almost a third than the entire state of Kansas have entered our border illegally in just 20 months. that is dangerous for America. Countless people on America's terror watch list, countless people dragging fentanyl into our country that's going to kill kids right here in Siouxland. And it doesn't have to be. Again, I heard Vice President Harris say there's no one walking across the border. You people right here, you media people, you have to call that what it is. You have to say, Vice President Harris, I have the videotape. They're walking across. It's 50 an hour. You have the responsibility to make clear to the American people she's just lying to them. And it is unacceptable to lie to the American people. We figured it out. President Trump made clear we were going to secure our southern border. It didn't happen overnight. It took hard work, but we developed a policy. It was called Remain in Mexico, and we slowed to a trickle illegal entry into the United States across our southern border. It is a political decision to allow this kind of chaos, this kind of crime, this many cartels that kill people sitting in trucks, who overheat and then kill the people in their cargo. This is not a decent moral policy. It is indeed indecent, it is indeed immoral, and it is dangerous for the United States of America not to protect its sovereignty. And it's completely doable.
What then would a moral policy look like?
Looks exactly like what we did. Just exactly what we did. We turn off the magnet for people to travel here. They're in difficult situations. They are suffering hardship. There is no doubt about that. It is true for people in many parts of the world. And there are many people who want to come to the United States, and we should create a system where they can come to the United States in a way that is lawful and decent. And we did that as well. What you can't do is encourage them to trek across Mexico and have their children raped and their lives destroyed by the cartels, taking all of their money. That is indecent. That is indeed fundamentally immoral. The policy that makes sense is to set up a system that secures American sovereignty, protects our southern border, and then sets up a system for lawful migration to our country, not just from Mexico, but from people all across the world who want to come be part of this great nation.
Are you here in Iowa for a possible presidential run?
I'm here in Iowa to speak to a bunch of patriots that are coming to the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce tonight. I've been working my tail off for candidates, including great candidates here in Iowa. I hope it is a landslide here in Iowa in just a few weeks, so that we regain control of the House and the United States Senate and can put a check on President Biden. All the talk of 2024, there's certainly time for that. My wife and I will pray, and we'll figure out precisely what we're going to do. There's two things I can assure your viewers and listeners. I'm not going to leave the fight. I've been working on the cause of America for 30 plus years now, whether that'll be by seeking elected office again or just out making sure that we're all trying to do the right things. At this point, only the Lord knows.
Any thoughts on changes in Britain? Not so much the king and queen, but the new prime minister. In that, I don't know if she'll serve more than a couple of years over there. And they're close to recession over in Britain now too.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. The American economy is suffering. The European economy is suffering even more, and is going to suffer even more come this winter. I know the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. I know her a little bit. My hope for her, and this is a British matter, my hope for her is she'll govern the way she ran for office, as a conservative believer in the vein of Margaret Thatcher, who alongside President Reagan made life really good for the American people and secured freedom for a lot of people all across the world. If she'll govern that way and we can get a president that can match what Reagan did, we'll do a lot of good for the American people, the people of Britain, and the entire world. I pray that it's so.